Hello lovely people, it's Sunday, it's Dishes with Del, we're back in the kitchen. This week's episode, Chinese braised short ribs. These things are absolutely incredible. They're rich, they're unctuous, they're amazing. You put them on, you forget about them, it's as simple as that. These things are so soft and so incredible, you just will never want to do it any other way. So, let's learn how to make Chinese braised short ribs. Okay, these Chinese short ribs. Looks like we've got a lot of ingredients, but there really isn't too many. And the best thing about this is it's really fast to sear off, and then you just leave it and it's done. So it means that anyone can do it. It really isn't too difficult. Yes, okay, there are a few ingredients, but again, maybe not so dissimilar from things that you might actually already have in the cupboard. So we'll quickly go through them. We've got some soy sauce. We've got some sesame oil. The only thing that maybe you may or may not have, Searing wine. But if you have something like sherry, something like that, like a sweet-ish wine, you can use that. Searing obviously is great, but it's not the end of the world if you don't have it. We've got Chinese spice, salt, pepper, some frozen coriander stalks. This is literally the best hack in the world. You often buy a whole thing of coriander and you know, you don't get around to using it all. So before it starts to go moldy in your fridge, chuck them in a dish with a lid, pop it in the freezer. You can use it for something like this. I do it all the time because you just don't always need the bunch that you buy. You only want a little bit, but saves it from going moldy. We've got 4 carrots, keep them really super chunky and big. We've got some onion. These can be white or red. I just so happen to have some red, so we're gonna use them. I've got like a whole clove of garlic. So this is all the heads. There's 9 there, but if there was 10, not the end of the world. A little bit of cinnamon, 1 dried chili, a little bit of fennel seed. It just kind of gives this little interesting hint in the background. I've got about a teaspoon of Szechuan pepper. Don't know why I always find that so hard to say. Teaspoon of that, and what we're going to do is we're going to crush some of these and some of these. We're going to give them a light toast off in a pan and give them a crush together, and you know, they're kind of mimicking things that are already in the Chinese spice powder, but just a little bit extra. Also, a little thing about Szechuan pepper. If you've never used Szechuan pepper, do be careful. It has quite a numbing sensation when you eat it, and if you put too much in, your mouth, you won't be able to feel anything. So do be cautious if you've not used it before. Maybe only use half a teaspoon, see if you like it, because once it's in, you can't take it out. I've got 1 reduced salt stock cube. Again, if you had some beef stock made, amazing, use that. And then these are the short ribs. So you buy them at the butcher, you buy them at the supermarket, they'll say short ribs, beef short ribs. But essentially what you get quite a fatty bit of meat that's quite tough, but that's why we cook it for a long time. It comes with a bone, often in the bottom. A really good thing to do as well is, if you're prepared, take them out of the plastic that they come in, because it's not ideal. They're kind of like wet in there, and then you can leave them overnight and they dry out a little bit, meaning that when you sear them off in the pan, you get a better sear. And that's it. That's all the things that you need. Oh, sorry, and 1 piece of ginger. So we're just going to prep all of these things and put them to one side, and then we're just going to make the little salt rub that's going to go on these, and then we're just going to sear it all off in the pan. It's as easy as that. Okay, so I've got all the bits here prepped. Here are the carrots. As you can see, they're in really big chunks, but this is going to get cooked for 2 to 4 hours, depending on where you're cooking it. If you're doing it in a slow cooker, you can leave it on all day, 8 hours. I'm going to do it in a pressure cooker, so I'm going to do it for like 2.5 hours. If you're doing it on the stovetop, you're probably going to cook it for about 4 hours. All that being said, these guys need to be big and chunky so that they don't just disintegrate. So that's why they're all in these really big chunks. Plus, this meal, when you eat it, you're only going to have maybe 1 rib. The more vegetables, the better. And all I did to cut them up is you take your carrot, I took the root end off like that, and then we call it like a rolling chop or something like that. So you just go in at an angle like that, you know, like that. You just kind of want to make these chunky, you know, you can turn the carrot in that way, like that, just into these big old chunks, and that's perfect. I cut the red onions into quarters, but I left the root on. So here you can see, I've left the root on of the onions, the skin's off, but I want to keep that so that the pieces stay together. So again, I can kind of take a chunk out. I'm not like fishing around for these disintegrated bits of onion. And then garlic, all I've done here is peeled it, kept it whole, because again, it's gonna cook for a long time. And then the ginger. So as you can see here, I've chopped it all up into little pieces. I've taken the skin off and kept it. Pop it in a little dish, pop it in the freezer. It's great when you're making like something like this again, or a ramen stock, or something where you want a little bit of a, you know, Asian flavor, but you don't need to go out and buy a new piece of ginger. You can actually just use the skin, so they're really great to keep in the freezer. And all I did with them was slice the ginger into thin slices, thinnish slices, doesn't have to be super fine because again, it will break down, and then just chop across like that into kind of fat baton slash julienne. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I've left a video link up here, and it's all about chopping. So if you're unsure of how to chop something in a nice way, like a dice or a slice or whatever, I've got a video on it. And all of these are going to get seared off after we've done the meat. And then this is the coriander stalk. So it was whole a little while ago, and all I did was chopped off this very, very root end bit like this. As you can see, this is like the root, and I've just cut it into small pieces because this will disintegrate because it's been in the freezer, so it's super, super soft. So it's just gonna dissipate into the stock and it's gonna be delicious. But we don't need to cook that in the pan, that will just be added to it. That's why I've kept this separate from that. And now we're just gonna toast off the Szechuan. So I'm gonna add that in here, and we're gonna also have about a teaspoon of the fennel seeds, and what we're gonna do is we're just gonna toast them off on the stove so that they start to let all their natural oils out, and then we're gonna grind it in the pestle and mortar. So as you can see there, they're smoking now in the pan. You wanna be careful because you don't wanna burn them, but you could see that they were just slightly starting to pop in the pan, and you could hear just like the, sometimes when you cook, it is actually about your senses as well, not just your nose or your taste. You do need to listen to things and look at things. So, you know, I could start to hear them like little pops, and I could see, you know, as I moved it around, that there was a small amount of smoke coming out, which tells me that they're ready. Just like that. I still want a little bit of the seed, but oh my God, it smells amazing. You know, the pestle and mortar is a great kitchen thing. I bought this at the second-hand shop and it cost me like $1. So, you know, things don't always have to be expensive in the kitchen, but they're handy to have, you know. It's nice to be able to crush fresh herbs because you get a different brightness from them as to when you're buying stuff from the packet. And now the last thing we're going to do is season the ribs. So we're just going to make a little bit of a salt rub, because if we just put spice on them straight away, then there would be a really good chance it would burn, and actually we're not going to then get a good colour on the meat. So if you mix it with some salt and other stuff, it kind of dissipates the powderiness and the possibility that it's going to catch. So we're going to go for a good heaped teaspoon of Chinese 5-spice and a good heaped and a half teaspoon of salt. And mix that all together. And it doesn't matter if you make too much of this because you can just save it and use it for another day, and then you already have a Chinese 5-spice salt all ready to go for something else. And then we're going to put in it loads of cracked black pepper. In fact, we're actually going to add another little half a teaspoon. So that's 2 teaspoons of salt, just to make sure that it's a good spice to salt ratio. You know, and also this is the only time that these are going to be seasoned. We might season the stock at the end, but I very much doubt it because soy is salty and the stock is a little bit salty. So we'll taste it and then we'll see if we need to season it anymore. But for the meat, this is the only season that's going to get, so you do want to be generous with it. So I'm actually just going to chuck them into the dish, and we're going to get our hands in there and just season all over these ribs. And I quite like doing it in a dish because then you can kind of roll this around and make sure that it's all fully seasoned. So it's a really good way to do it. Just like that. Get it on all the edges. You know, and then you're picking up all that excess before we then need to see if we need to put any more on. We might need a little bit, yeah. So now here, obviously, I've got a hand that's got meat on it, so what I want to do is use my other hand to add a little more, because you don't want to contaminate your salt if you were going to then reuse it another time. And that's it. They are all coated, and now all we need to do is sear all of this stuff off. I've got a pan on high heat here. I've just added some veg oil and then a little bit of sesame oil. Sesame oil is quite strong, so that's why you just want to have a little bit to infuse the other oil, and that will be going into the final base anyway. And then we're just going to add in the short ribs and give them a really hard sear all the way around. Be careful that the pan doesn't start to look like it's burning, because again, you've got that Chinese fire spice in there, which can quite easily start to like catch. So just kind of be wary of that. And then we're just going to brown it off. There's a nice bit of colour on them, because that colour is caramelisation, and caramelisation is flavour. So you just want to get all them things in there. And then I'm just going to take them out, pop them into the pot, and then in the same pan we're just going to add the veg and just give it a little bit of colour, just to also soak up all that extra flavour that's left in the pan from the meat and the extra spice and all that kind of stuff. And that's it. So all that veg, the meat is all lovely seared off, and I've sat it into the pan, which is for the pressure cooker. So this is where, if you were doing it in your slow cooker, you're putting it in the dish, but you do need to sear it off first. You can't just add it all in there. So they're in the bottom of the pan here, and then I've got the veg. I'm going to add that all to the pan as well. Make sure you get all your bits out, and we're going to add the coriander stalks, and then this is the spice mix that we had, so we'll add that in there too, and then the cinnamon stick and the chili. This is all interchangeable. You know, if you really like it hot, add an extra chili. If you don't like fennel seeds, leave them out. And then what we're going to do is we are going to add a little glug of the Searing wine, just a little bit. We don't want a lot. And you know, if you didn't want to have it in there, you don't have to, if you're alcohol intolerant or something like that. And then we're probably going to add about 6 tablespoons of soy sauce, because obviously soy sauce is salty, so you know, you don't want to put too much in there. And what we can always do at the end is slightly amend it. If it needs a little bit more saltiness, we'll add a little bit more soy. And then that's the stock cube dissolved with just water. And what you want to do, that was 1 litre of stock. And as you can see there, you know, the veggies aren't quite covered, but that's okay, because they're going to be in the pressure cooker, so they're going to steam. But the meat is all covered, and you know, give it a little bit of a stir, push it all down. That's the meat there. You know, it's just covered with the stock. And that's it. And I'm just going to actually give it a quick taste. Oh my God, already it tastes like incredible. And then just think, this is going to reduce and cook and just become like so much more intense. So, however you're doing it, get it on. And basically what you want to do is make sure that it gets to the point that the bones have either come out of the short rib, or you can just pull it off. I'm going to put it in the pressure cooker, get it cooking, get it working for a couple of hours, and then I'll show you what absolute treat comes out. And what we'll do is then we'll strain off the stock, and we'll just reduce it a little bit to make it a bit more of an intense flavour and become almost a bit of a gravy. So I will see you all in a few hours. Okay, we have here the beef. It's just finished cooking. This is the beef. As you can see, it is falling apart. That bone just comes out. The carrots are still nice and full, but perfectly soft and cooked. And then we have this amazing sauce. And what we need to do for this sauce is pop it into a pan and just reduce it. So the best thing to do to strain the juice is just put a little sieve there and just be very gentle. This way it's going to catch anything that you don't want going in there. And you're just going to be left in here with all the other bits. So we can take them out, put them all to one side, get this on reducing, and then we just got to plate it up. The sauce, I've just taken it off the stove. It's reduced quite a lot, but it's still a little bit thin, but I quite like it like that. If you wanted it a little bit thicker, you could put a little bit of corn flour in it, but it's very, very rich because I don't know whether you can see here, there is some fat on the top, and that's from the beef fat rendering out. Now also, again, you can skim that off if you want, but I quite like it. Just, it's that little bit of richness that just comes with it. So now that we've reduced it and we've got our other things out, we'll just give it a little taste. Oh, like I said before, the salt comes from the soy and from the seasoning of the meat. So it's got enough salt, it's seasoned perfectly. The carrots and the onions give it actually a really amazing sweetness in the background. It's a little, it's really rich from the fat that's been drawn out of the beef, and it's just a really great winter warmer that doesn't really take much effort. The actual longest part of it is waiting for it to cook. But again, if you did it in a slow cooker, you could put it on before you go to work and it'll be done by the time you come back. But what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take one of these lovely beef ribs and we're just gonna pop it back in this warm sauce, and we'll take maybe 3 of these carrots. There's 5 beef ribs here. It's probably enough to feed 5 people. I mean, this one I've put on here is really quite large, and I mean, probably a bit too much for one, but I'm feeling a bit greedy, classic Del, so And then here, this is all the onions and the ginger, and again, a nice big, generous spoonful of that. And even though some of it's become a bit mushy, it kind of thickens up that sauce just a little bit. So I'm just gonna put that in there, gently warm it up, and we're gonna serve it out with a little bit of white steamed rice and steamed bok choy, and we're just gonna plate it up. We're just gonna pop that rib on. Oh, it just looks so decadent. And a few of them carrots. Some of that lovely roasted onion and ginger. Oh, and then that sauce, we're just gonna pour all down the bottom and over that rice. I'm just gonna go for a few little sesame seeds over the rice and over the beef. Some lovely crispy shallots and just a few extra little sprigs of coriander. And that there is probably one of the quickest slow meals that you can make. Chinese braised short ribs with pak choy, carrot and onion, and honestly, it's absolutely delicious. And let's just tuck in. Oh my God, that meat literally is just like falling away from the bone. It's so, so tender. A little bit of that onion, some of that lovely gravy. I mean, we know that we learn how to make great things here, but that is just incredible. The meat is so soft. The carrots, they just disintegrate in your mouth, but the sweetness is still there. The same with the onions. And that sauce, it doesn't need to be thick and coat in your mouth. It's just so flavorful. This stuff, oh, I mean, I love it. It's a favorite round here. And I hope it can be a favorite at your house too. I hope you like this video, guys, and yeah, give me a like, give me a subscribe, leave me a message in the comment section down below about what you might like to learn, and we'll be back here next week to learn something equally as delicious. Anyways, I'm gonna go polish this off for my dinner, and I'll see you guys all next week. Thanks for coming by again. See ya. I mean, honestly, it's so good. Bye.